amigos, welcome or welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm out in my garden again today because it's dry, even though it's a bit grey and miserable, and it's the quietest place for me to film, basically, apart from the bird noise, which I have discussed before. But I've got my cup of tea to keep me warm while I film this, so I should be okay. So February was a really good reading month for me. I had loads of good books, and I finished one in particular which I've been reading for a while. That one was this. It's John Steinbeck's Journal of a Novel. So this is basically the letters that John Steinbeck wrote to his editor while he was writing East of Eden. So his editor gave him like a big writing book, and on the left hand side of the book, when he started writing for the day, he would write just like a letter to his editor every day, kind of saying how the story was going, how his life was, and then on the right hand side he would write the actual novel. So it makes it a really fascinating thing to read, how his mind worked, how he went about plotting the book, how he felt when he was writing it, how much he wrote, how often he wrote, all these kinds of things. And you can see, like, I've got so many post-it notes stuck in here for interesting things. I am actually thinking of doing a video about kind of like writing like John Steinbeck and like the methods that he used. It was an interesting read, but if you were to decide to read it, I would recommend that you do it the way that I did, which is just reading a few pages every day, because it's essentially unedited. The only editing that's been done to it is apparently there were a few words that he commonly misspelt, which have been corrected, and also really personal information about his family has been taken out. But it does mean that it's very repetitive, because it is just somebody kind of rambling away for a little bit before they start properly writing. So he's very obsessive about his pencils. For example, he goes on and on about his pencils and the correct pencil for him to use. He's always getting stressed about things, never wanting to be rushed with his writing. And there's various things that he talks about a lot, and it is very repetitive. So that is how I would recommend reading this. Definitely worth a read, but just bear that in mind. Okay, the second book, I think we'll go for another non-fiction one here, this was a reread for me. So this is Understanding Show, Don't Tell, and Really Getting It by Janice Hardy. I wanted to reread this again just because I find it so useful, and because I was going through like almost a final draft of my manuscript. It was the draft that I was getting ready to send to my beta readers. So I was just wanting to go over this, and it's absolutely brilliant. I cannot recommend this highly enough. The examples that she uses in it are just brilliant. It really explains it fantastically and shows you exactly how you can change your writing if you feel that you are doing too much telling and not enough showing. So yeah, really recommended. The next book was one I gave in, and I read The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. So this is a library book. I originally borrowed this as an audiobook using my library app, but I just couldn't get into it, and I think I was just too distracted. I find it very difficult to listen to audiobooks because I'm not very used to it, and my mind wanders, whereas it doesn't when I'm focusing on reading from a page. And there are a lot of names, especially in the first few chapters, unusual names as well, so I just really struggled with it. But I thought, I think the story is good, so I borrowed the actual book, and I really enjoyed it. I think it's very clever, lots of morally dark characters. Nobody's a proper good guy, if you like, and I really like that about it. It's very clever, and I definitely will read the next one. Is this a trilogy, or is there two? Because I feel like I've got the King one upstairs from the library as well. I've got that ready to read in the next few days, but I'm not sure if there's a third book or what. I don't know. So if anybody knows, like, pop it down in the comments. But yeah, it was fun. I don't read a lot of YA fantasy, but I am reading a bit more of it because I really do enjoy fantasy, and yeah, I liked it. I would recommend. Then the next one was reread for me The Remains of the Day. I watched the film years and years ago, and I read the book quite soon afterwards, but I hadn't read it for ages, and I picked up this really nice copy of it in a charity shop. I think it was like 75p or something amazing like that. It's actually an American edition because it says $16 on the back. And I really like it, and I thought, as I had such a nice copy of it now, I would reread it again. If you haven't read it, do. It is absolutely beautiful, absolute modern classic, but it isn't a story that you kind of get bogged down with. It's not difficult to read. It's a very easy read and just such a lovely story. It's all about a butler who's worked at this amazing house for years and years and years, and really is discussing the changes in England from how it was and how society was before the Second World War and how it then was after the Second World War. And yeah, absolutely brilliant. Cannot recommend this one highly enough. Another fantastic one. And then the final book that I finished in February, I do have a couple of books on the go at the moment, but I haven't finished them, so they'll count for April, was Loathe to Love You by Ali Hazelwood. So my lovely boys bought this for me as a present when my book came out last month. It's a Steminist, I love that, novella collection. So it's a collection of 3 novellas, Under One Roof, Stuck With You and Below Zero. So I really loved The Love Hypothesis. I thought it was brilliant. I know that some people have different views, but for me, I really enjoyed it. And Love on the Brain I liked as well. I didn't love it quite as much as The Love Hypothesis, but I did think it was really good. So there was no way I wasn't going to read this. I'm not the greatest fan of novellas usually, although I have written 2 myself, but mine are obviously brilliant. But in general, I find that I prefer a longer story to really get into the characters. Ali Hazelwood's writing is great. They're so quick and easy to read. You really get carried away. But while I did enjoy it, I definitely prefer her full-length novels to the novellas. But I am glad that I've got it. I'm glad that I read it. And, you know, it's in my collection now. So that's super cool. So I would love to know what you guys have been enjoying reading this month, if there's anything that you've particularly enjoyed and that you would recommend. I'm especially wanting to read more books by my fellow author tubers. So for March, at the moment, I'm reading How to Kill Your Family, which I am loving. It's so clever. I've also got S.D. Houston's book that I'm really looking forward to. That's going to be great. That one's next. And then I've got another pile. I think I went a bit crazy at the charity shops and in the libraries because my to be read pile has just exploded on me. So I've got a lot that I'd like to get through, but we'll have to see because I've got a lot of writing work on for March. I'm going to have some exciting news that I'll be able to share about that soon. So I'm not sure how much reading time I will have, but I always spend at least an hour in the evening before I go to bed reading. So I'm sure that I will get through a few of those. So yeah, I really hope that you had a good month of reading as well. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. Please boop the like button if you haven't already, and subscribe if you're not, and if you enjoy this kind of content, and I will catch you in the next one.